Welcome to the Player Engage podcast, where we dive into the biggest challenges, technologies, trends, and best practices for creating unforgettable player experiences. Player Engage is brought to you as a collaboration between Keyword Studios and HelpShift. Here is your host, Greg Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Player Engage podcast, and we have a special episode today. Today, I'm joined by Artem Dogtiev from the Business of Apps. If you're not familiar with Business of Apps, it's a B2B platform that provides you with insider news about all the different apps and just all news about them. I don't want to take too much thunder, so maybe you can do a better job at that introduction of Business of Apps, Art. But thank you for joining me today. I'm excited to have this conversation. Do you mind saying a few words?
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Yeah, Business of Apps is the place for everybody in the app industry to get together, learn new tricks, see what the case studies of other folks have to say, and see what's coming, pick up the trends, and be knowledgeable in anything that comes to mind when it's about app industry marketing, development, funding, advertising, anything.
Yeah, I highly recommend you go check out their website. It's just businessofapps.com. We'll have a link to it on the Player Engage site, but it's like the white pages or just like a encyclopedia of all the different apps, all the different news that's out there. They have a great podcast as well, which I actually think my CEO, Eric, was on a couple of weeks ago. And it's just this great community where it's great information learning. And one of the questions I always like to ask myself as well as out loud is, where do people get news these days? There's like Reddit, where people will post a lot of news. There's some LinkedIn, but it's hard to kind of aggregate all the news and information about what's going on. And while we focus on the gaming vertical typically here, a lot of this translates really well to other verticals as well, whether it be fintech or e-commerce or travel, hospitality. So I think it's a great place where best practices can be shared across the different networks. And Art, I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you. Getting started, right? Your background is really media focused. When you were younger, was this your dream of being able to come and talk about kind of best practices and trends in the industry? Where was Art years ago when he's determining what he wants to be when he grows up?
When I was a kid, to be perfectly blunt, I did not have any role model. I wasn't dreaming to become anybody. That's just the reality. I was pretty into sci-fi. I read a lot. I think the books were my constant companions when I was a kid. Sci-fi only, nothing related to fantasy. So don't ask me anything about the Game of Thrones. But if it's about The Expanse, you're my guy. So I vividly remember from Monday to Friday on the weekend being with a bunch of books, and I think that was the point where my curiosity about the world, about science, about what are we doing on this planet, where this whole thing is going to, and where did we come from? That was my world, and again, no particular role model. But I guess sci-fi was my window to curiosity about this world.
I think The Expanse is one of the greatest shows that has been on TV. And I think Amazon did a ton of justice with it by picking it up after Sci-Fi let it down. It was a very big disappointment to see that leave. And I know Telltale came out with a game about The Expanse. I haven't played it yet, but it's something that is on my list of things to do.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great thing to see Apple picking up when everybody was kind of sighing, another show is gone because of financial problems, which every show has to face with. Yes, I don't think that when I was like a toddler age, anything would tell you anything about the work I'm doing right now. And when I was in school, high school, I graduated as believe it or not, engineer metrologist. Never worked a single day, a single minute in my life by that profession. But I guess it kind of gave me this take on the world that nothing is perfect. There's always the margin for an error. You may try to measure anything as much as you can, but there's got to be an error all the time. But the profession, how I started my career as a search engine guy, did not exist. So everybody was just learning on the job, having a zero experience, no books, nothing. You're just inventing the whole thing on your own. And it relates to what came later. Obviously, the mobile world didn't exist back then. So I was kind of my career was going along the trajectory of mobile industry development. That's how this is my part of. Yeah, I don't think I can put anything on top of it. This is how it went.
You're currently residing in Canada. I believe you were born and at least raised in the Ukraine. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I spent most of my life back in Ukraine. Moved only recently, just a year ago here. So been traveling a lot, but never lived for that extended period of time anywhere outside of Ukraine. But for the last 20 plus years, I've been traveling a lot in Europe, Middle East.
How would you say, and this is me just being naive here, right? But what is the technology world like in the Ukraine over the past bunch of years, right? Is it more technology than people would normally think of? Do you have to do a lot of your own digging because things didn't really exist?
Um, well, if we're talking about the like I think it depends. Like if we're talking about the mobile industry, I think the the expertise in software that was really kind of forged in mid 90s, early 2000, when a lot of small startups. To be perfectly honest, back then the copyright for software was something kind of weird for everybody. People knew that there's such a thing as a copyright, but nobody respected it back then. So the upshot of that was that people had a lot of experience with a different kind of software they could be hands on and later become their profession. Obviously, that's not the case anymore, but at kind of it was a Wild West period in early 2000. But that lead to a lot of companies that right now, if you pick up the App Store app, you can see a lot of games and apps which easily were developed by teams or developers from Ukraine at some point, or you can see people on the teams of those apps or games that originally were raised in Ukraine, got their education, got their first work experience back then, and later moved to other countries. So there are things that are different, like for an average kind of live snapshot here in North America, but in many respects, it's really the same thing. Like people are have the same worries like my kids, like their education, the health of my parents, like planning of my life in general. There are small wrinkles that are different culturally, but in many respects, it's pretty much so familiar here in North America.
I guess one of the things about technology that's beautiful is that with remote work, with the tools that are available to everyone, you kind of have the same level playing field across no matter where you are, right? As long as you can understand the languages that are being spoken, and translation and localization is probably the most important part of that. But it's a fairly level playing field now, no matter where you are.
Internet, laptop, coffee, and you're good to go.
Coffee is the most important part, or else nothing's working for that day.
Sure.
So with business of apps, right? Your guys are taking a look at the entire app ecosystem. I love how on your site you kind of have a ranking of the apps, demographic of apps. I'm looking at different app data that you have there. I guess for in general, about how many people are typically working on the site at this point, or contributing information to it?
So we have a team, like a core team and freelancers. So if I remember correctly, the core team, I'm just counting the spots on the Zoom screen, the 9 folks on the core team, and 5, 7 people on top of that are freelancers who participate from time to time, not members of the core team. But yeah, we have people who are responsible for creating articles for data section, where we provide this holistic view on what specific popular app you can think of, like Uber, Tinder, Airbnb, in numbers. How does this app look like in numbers? Its trajectory of growth, where it's at this point, snapshot, the portrait of the app. We have the inside section where we have people who are actually, this is the section for contribution. People can share their expertise and publish something related to a few specific areas like app marketing, app store optimization, influencer marketing, and we have news where we cover, like, quickly but insightfully, giving a few nuggets about the specific piece of news that is happening right now, trying to strike the balance between keeping people informed and not overwhelm them with the amount of stuff, because they've been overwhelmed without our help. We don't want to help in this process any more than it's happening without our help. And obviously, there's a podcast where I'm the host, actually, and we're trying to cover this core set of topics related to app optimization, marketing, influencer marketing, engagement, analytics around across the publications, podcast, and the second part of the company is actually a promotion summit that is taking place a few times in a year. And to be perfectly honest, the closest at promotion summit is coming up this Thursday in San Francisco. So it's just literally happening this week. And we welcome app marketers from around the globe on these events to share their experience in the topics I've just listed. And we kind of going back and forth between providing the offline exposure for these topics for people to discuss on the event, and then going online, kind of the extra, the collateral for the event with the publication, with the podcast, and the rest. And this is how we hold this app industry ecosystem together, giving people a chance to either interact offline in real life at the event, or share their expertise online. Yeah, this is how it goes.
Yeah, it's great. I know I went to the App Promotion Summit a few years ago in New York City. I think it was right after kind of COVID started to slow down, and it's a weird. It was a great event. Just weird seeing people again in person. It was but it was a fun event, and lots of great companies there to be able to meet and mingle with. And I think you're in this fascinating position where you're basically providing information or helping these apps, right? Everyone has an app these days. Everyone has this idea these days, and they want to go make $1 million. And they're thinking, hey, I'll just create this new dating app or this new retail app and do this. And, you build the app, that's one thing. And it's not like Field of Dreams where if you build it, they will come, right? You talked about, right? You have app store optimization, you have influencer marketing, you want to be able to measure your engagement and your retention. And if we're going to go build an app today, right? Forget the app building of the app, right? Where are you going to focus your time? Are you going to look at app store optimization? Are you going to look at marketing? Is there a strategy that you work with customers or potential companies with on how to kind of do this?
Well, the tricky thing is, just like you said, on one side, like on one hand, if you look at the both app stores with so many apps, you get a feeling, and it's pretty justified, a feeling that a lot of ideas are being covered so extensively, and it feels like there's no room for you to squeeze into this market with your idea, with your concept, with your app. And this is your challenge. So to not be in a position when you're going to be wasting your money, and what is worth not your money but your investors' money, you need to have you need to test the market before you start developing your app. The research is so essential to see, to check the temperature in the room, what's going on with your competitors, with which you will be competing pretty soon once your app is on the App Store. how they're doing, what the reception their apps are getting. What are the channels which will be helpful for you to talk to people, to the users of your app once it's live, or those people are hanging online, so to speak. There's a set of there's a toolbox of tools that is available for everybody. It's just your job to pick up the tools from that toolbox and see do they fit to your plan. Social media marketing, either is the paid advertising on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, etc., or working with influencers if that will be relevant for your app. App Store optimization, I think it's just the tick box that should be ticked off for every app. It doesn't matter if it's a simple calculator or the next Amazon giant, if you're that lucky. So making sure that people can find your app on the App Store once they're looking for something specific, and that specific will be your app. Paid advertising on the on Google and Meta, Facebook ads. It's in many cases it's relevant. It depends what's going on with funding for your app. Are you in a position to allocate this money? Because ideally, finding folks for your application via native search and paid advertising, it's like the two pillars of the same strategy. It just depends on how much money you will be able to allocate to paid advertising. But it's always helpful because it helps to feed your discoverability on the App Store and Google Play. Without going into much of the details, there is a connection between your paid advertising, the keywords you're bidding there, and the keywords people will be finding your app via just native search when they pull up the app, the App Store and look for something. So influencers, App Store optimization. Of course, content marketing is a big part, but content marketing always implies there's got to be something who can write a relatively good. When I say good, meaning people will be interesting to read that stuff. You can deliver the problem is that if you're a developer, you have good skills for coding, probably for designing, probably both. But writing, it's kind of the anti, if you're good at STEM, it doesn't mean you're good in the literature and writing. So obviously, if when it comes to your education, you either made a choice to become to pick up your job that will be more on the math side, so to speak, or if writing was your thing, I'm not sure if you will be creating your next step. So you need to find somebody who will be a good content marketer for you. You may find a freelancer, or you may realize that you just didn't try before yourself. You actually have this talent. You can put the information about your app, your company, the problem you're solving by releasing your app with blog posts that people will be reading, and you'll be telling the story of your app. You'll be able to pitch your ideas to press. This is the hardest part. If somebody's remember this slogan, there's an app for that. It feels like it was ages ago. Nobody cares if there's an app for that in that sense. Apps are vehicles. You're building. We're saying you're building an app business, but on a rare occasion, it's about the app. It's about the business you're building. An app is the vehicle, the channel for you to connect with your customers or people who would just consumer something not commercial. So influencer marketing, paid advertising, content marketing. This is kind of a big four in my book.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I want to ask some questions, but usually around the 20-minute mark, I like to kind of do this fire round where I'm just going to ask some quick questions. Don't put much thought into it. If you don't mind just giving me an answer, and then I want to build up on that. So I
Sure.
just have 5 quick questions for you. One, I know you're a family man based on what I've read online. What's your ideal family vacation?
Oh, it's when we're three of us are flying on the plane somewhere where we've never been before, and there's a lot of things to check out, sites. Uh, the place that will show us some stories, something we didn't know before we went on that journey, and a lot of laughs, fun, and good recollections later.
All right, sounds like you like history and you like kind of the reasoning behind things. What is the last book you read?
Oh, the last book I read. I'm currently reading the book about the what it takes for us to actually leave this planet and live on the other planets. A bunch of questions that nobody's asking except how we're going to build the rockets. The book deals with a lot of questions about psychology, history, politics, all those questions when you're on your way to live on Mars. What is going to look like in reality? It's not just about rockets and getting there. There are many other questions. So the book covers all these things. It's very entertaining reading.
Still living with that sci-fi, huh? You
Yeah.
still love that stuff. My favorite question is, what did you have for breakfast?
Oh, that's cotton cheese with bunch of berries.
Okay. Um, do you play games? I guess what's your favorite game?
Oh, that's easy. I never, I never passed Tetris.
T-
Tetris was my game of choice, years and years ago, and I never ventured farther than Tetris as it's the game I really like to play. I'm not a game guy. No.
It's it's a shame. If you ever want to get into it, you should try Starfield. There's just a great whole exploration aspect of it where you can look up the different types
Gotcha.
of resources. And last question: if you were going to go to a bar and order a cocktail, what type of cocktail would you order?
Oh, cocktail. Uh, Gosh, that's an interesting question because I prefer wine all the time.
I love it. I love wine. What's your wine of choice if you're not getting a cocktail?
Uh, that's funny because my favorite wine is the wine that my dad does. He's a kind of an amateur brewer, and it doesn't have a name. It's
Awesome.
just the taste that I really love.
Love it. It's great. Okay, so let's go back. You said a lot of things about kind of building an app, and not only what you said is just building an app, but it's also really building a business, right? I mean, it's no matter what you're building, the channels that you're advertising are going to be important because some channels are great for LinkedIn's great for business promotion, Instagram's great for selling stuff and kind of promote like knowing what your business is and understanding the channels you're going to market it on is super important. If you try selling stuff on, if you try selling retail goods on LinkedIn, you're not going to make it too far typically. The one that I found was really interesting is content marketing. I think people struggle with creating unique content. I think even if you look at businesses, creating blog posts, creating videos, creating all this stuff is like time consuming. But now we have this little tool called ChatGPT or Midjourney or all these other AI tools that you could type in like 6 keywords and it'll write a thesaurus worth of information for you. And it's interesting and great when you know what you're doing with it and how you're tweaking it and prompting it. But you're also getting a lot of, for lack of better words, crap that's being put out there. And then do you, and this is probably more of a personal decision, but do you think the rise of AI is good for the content creation marketplace? Is it saturating it? Is it both?
Well, that's a good question. As people say, when the answer is not clear, um, you know, there's so much things to say under the umbrella. It depends. Um, I think for like if we're talking about the app marketing, so the app industry specifically, I think ChatGPT or Bart from Google can both be helpful as a kind of an inspiration. So, like usually, what do you do when you try to do something that you have no idea how it should be done? You're looking for examples, right? You're looking for how this should be done by looking at somebody else's work. And with ChatGPT, you can get on the fly, on the spot, the example of what needs to be done. But I'm not encouraging people, not at this point, not later, just blindly copying, pasting, and just publishing this stuff. The thing is that ChatGPT and Bard are great in processing what was done before by somebody else. They're doing it so really well that we cannot see that line between if that piece was written by me or by machine, because it's really great in putting together the pieces for so many pieces of information it was using for putting this blog post or post for social media together. But it's always like from a psychological perspective, to me personally, I don't want to give away the work specifically to the machine entirely. Um, Not at this point. It I think generally it's a great way of like you wouldn't pick up a pen or and paper to calculate something. You would pick it up a calculator, but you will not be using a calculator to solve a more complex problem. So ChatGPT for me, it's a kind of a calculator for content marketing. So it's a great to create something that is like 80% good, and then see if I can just finish this portrait. Kind of a few strokes for me personally. This is my recipe.
So you're saying you can't let ChatGPT or whatever, Bard or whatever, do all the work for you. If you feed it the material and you maybe ask for it to improve it or to make it sound better, to do this, like use it as a vehicle to help you get moving rather than do the whole work for you.
Yeah, because remember the stories that have been kind of really good news grabbers recently, that people come to the library with a list of books that did not exist. No authors, no titles, no books. Don't exist. ChatGPT just came up with those great titles and authors' names just on the spot. So things like a hallucination, I don't think like both platforms are in a position, at least right now, to solve. Remains to be seen what's going to happen next year and later. But as of right now, just don't give away the wheel to drive for ChatGPT.
It does very funny things. Usually, when I'm done with my podcast, this tool that we're using, Zencaster, will kind of give me a summary of like 1,000 words. Here's what you guys spoke about, and I'll usually put that into ChatGPT and I'll say, come up with 160 characters for SEO purposes, and it will
Uh-huh.
send me like a 500-word response, and it's like, hey, here's 160 characters. I'm just like, that's more than 160. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Here we go again. Just like, this is really common sense, and it's a great tool. It's a really smart tool, but these hallucinations, and there's some other words for that. Like, if you're not checking yourself, if you're not checking what it spits out, right? And I'm sure a lot of people are copying and pasting it, and you can see it on LinkedIn, you can see it on Reddit, where things are really obviously written by ChatGPT or something. People don't even hide it, and I think like you got to put some of your own work in there. You got to make it yours. You got to try.
Exactly. I saw the recent study a couple of months ago, like 8,500 individuals were asked, how did you use ChatGPT for what was the purpose? What was the topic you were asking for help? Like 1/3 was marketing, 1/3 was software development, and the rest was 1/3. So software developers, I think, would be, if you ask the same question to them, they would be praising the software for doing all heavy duty stuff for them. But marketing, yeah, that's a calculator. Just be cautious, like with the ultimate result, because it try to do the best job. So if you're putting together 5-10 articles yourself, what would look like the result if you're doing it yourself, just trying to make it really cool? It's not necessarily what the result you need. There are more nuanced, which is hard to program, at least right now, at least with the current level of how much information and the algorithm and the chat GPT at this point. So yeah, just be mindful of hallucination of chat GPT.
Always check your sources. And let's kind of pivot where this conversation's going and talk through this. For my own curiosity, do you download a ton of apps? I mean, in the business you are, do you test these apps ever, or do you how many apps would you say you go through a week?
Wow. So from the top of my head, on my phone, I think I'm in this average statistic number, like 120, 130 apps on my phone. I think, well, definitely not on a weekly basis. Definitely, unless there's something interesting, like, on the magnitude of interest, like ChatGPT or something, I would grab this initiative just quickly and see, like, make my own impression. Threads was the latest example. Okay, what is it going to look like? Why are people so crazy about it? But it always starts with a specific necessity. Okay, I'm going to, let's say, on a hiking trail. I don't know the place. Okay, there's an app. Okay, cool. The app has certain maps that you can download on my phone, and when the reception is dead, I'm still good to go. Well, that's a good app. I can grab it and use it. But I think I've stopped venturing to the App Store for the sake of curiosity and see what's cool there. A while ago, just no time for this thing. I use the App Store for my iPhone just as a source of apps that like on the spot. There's a specific case, there is a specific need, and I need an app for that. That generally, I think just reading analytics from Data AI of what are apps on the top and having a holistic picture of the App Store, that's enough for me.
So, a little bit building on that, and I'll let you choose the direction of how to answer this question. Are there trends or new things you're seeing apps do that you either love or hate?
Well, I think the hate part will be easier for me. I hate gamification of apps for trading and investing. People, well, like, obviously, Robinhood comes to mind. I don't mean I hate the company or people, the idea of mm, um, presenting the, like, investing your money. It's not like, when you present this process as a game, it's a bad thing for your awareness, how serious it is for your financial future. It lowers the bar of kind of a threshold for new people to join. It may be great for the app growth. That's awesome. Okay, but from a perspective of the customer, of myself, I don't see it a good thing, especially when people in their 20s may invest a lot of money without the second thought, because it felt like a game. It felt funny. It felt cool. It's everybody else is doing. I don't think it's a good thing. So gamification, I'm not a fan of that. On the positive side and the flip side, I love that some of the apps manage to do kind of impossible. Like, I'll give you an example of what I mean. Like there's an app for planning your to-dos things. It's a Germany company that has been pushing this app for a number of years on the App Store, and the app is getting new features. It's obviously became more complex, but it doesn't become bulky. It's not bulky. It's not. I'm still picking up the app and can figure out what it does. I'm not lost. So you can actually increase the complexity, add new features, but still you can absolutely feel easy of using that app, and it still makes sense. It still does what it does for you. There's a very fine line between improving your app, adding more features as new ideas come along, as your hardware allows you, give you more freedom. But at the same time, you're not getting in the direction of the Microsoft Office years and years ago when so many icons on the screen, you could just lost in that interface. So yeah, this is the positive and negative trend in my book.
Yeah, both of those are great, right? Gamification of apps is interesting, right? I mean, you have the Robinhood crew that with the retail apps like GameStop and all that, right? Kids see this weird transition between the Robinhood group and also sports betting as well, right? It's all
Yeah.
becoming so much more accessible, and I think this is my own personal feeling is that it's teaching kids at a young age to be reckless with money. And yes, you're going to see people on Reddit who are like, I made $1 million. Great. For every one person that looks out and makes $1 million, do you know how many people are losing a significant amount of money? I love investing, right? And I think Robinhood's a great app. I think it's a great app because kind of almost what you said about the love thing. I think Robinhood adds some great features without sprawling too much and becoming confusing to use. The problem is it's also making it so easy that maybe
Yeah.
I don't know. But and I love the love thing that you mentioned as well. Is like how do you continue to add onto this app without confusing it? There's a lot of games I play on my phone, and they keep adding features to it and features to it, and this feature has nothing to do with the rest of the game. And why do I have to do this now? It's just like I hate this now because I have to come in here and spend 45 minutes doing things I don't want to do in order to do what I want to do. So it's fascinating to be able to see how you create a roadmap on how do you improve that core feature that people love to come and do. I know I just got the Fold 5, right? And I'm just trying to find these cool apps that actually utilize the Fold. And it's hard to find this stuff. And I'm curious. And because I feel like that's I love planning too, right? And I'm trying to find good apps that can utilize both sides of the screen. And this kind of goes into the next question I had is like, how do you research these new apps that are coming out? How do you stay current in the industry? And I know you said data.ai, right, is great for showing you what are those top apps that are performing across the different categories. But how do you stay, other than reading your own website, how do you stay current in the industry?
Well, my kind of three-pillar approach will be number one, finding good newsletters. Unfortunately, as much as you would try to kind of creating this digest of what's cool in the certain area of business or anything yourself, you just don't have time for it. If you can find a newsletter like my gold standard Bennett Evans a newsletter where he put together kind of a both meta picture on what's going on in the IT in the on the internet on the biggest scale, and at the same time covering smaller updates from big platforms when it's relevant. And I'm not saying that you'll be able to read that newsletter on a daily or weekly basis. It depends on how much you're busy on a daily basis, but at least a couple of times a month, you can get a really good holistic picture of what's going on the big scale. The second pillar will be podcasts. I'm biased. Like in this case, I I host a podcast where I invite people from many businesses to talk, so I can have a direct access. But you can find the podcast on the it may be iTunes directory, the podcast directory from Apple or Spotify or Stitcher. There are many platforms where you can find podcasts for you to listen. It doesn't matter if you're on Android or iOS; both sides are covered. And this is for you. Will be a good way for you to stay on top of things because it's a matter of how much free time you have in your hands on a daily basis to be on top of things. And you can listen to podcasts when you're doing something else. This is great. Unless you're driving, please don't listen to podcasts and drive. It's not a good combination. You have to be mindful of what's going on the road. But when you're at home and doing some stuff, and you can listen, and there are video podcasts. If you'd like to see something, visually But for that matter, you could just go on YouTube and subscribe to a channel, which will be my third channel, my third pillar, YouTube, as the way of staying on top of things. The YouTube has grown to kind of the TV for you because of the production quality. You can find people who are really, really good in creating content, even though they did not represent any big company, any media company, but still they're really great in creating content that is useful, fun, and kind of hitting the golden line between being informative but not too long. Yeah, so YouTube channels, podcasts, and good newsletters.
Love it. And I think the one thing just to be wary of as well is with YouTube, kind of like AI having hallucinogens, if you're not following the right type of influencers on YouTube, or same with podcasts, right? You might get some news that's not so favorable, which I think is a negative side of the whole social media side of things, on how any type of news can become news. But I think those are all great sources. I know my wife and I, we spend a lot of time on YouTube now because at the end of the day, I mean, we can flip through channels, or we can find a channel that's interesting and learn something, or do something that's a little more insightful. And I think there's some great things out there that can help people learn this type of information. You mentioned you all this media that you're consuming, right? Whether it be podcast, newsletters, you all are also an avid reader, right? Are you still reading as much as you want, or you find that your time's being taken up by these other channels as well?
Well, my bookshelf on the Kindle app is pretty heavy. A lot of titles are sitting there that have nothing to do with the stuff we're talking about right now, like Behave, the book from Robert Sapolsky about psychology, is really great when it comes to what's going on in our brain on a daily basis. How do we operate? The books like biography of Steve Jobs, some books about physics, anthropology, and I'm like. I don't think I have a goal to read a book within a month or something, but I find it really convenient to read the book and switching between my iPhone and iPad. And just when the time permits, like usually it happens on the weekend or when I'm somewhere on a long commute. But I still manage to find a few hours a week to read something that I really love.
I'm envious. It's funny. I'm thinking back to your vacation comment on being able to take a vacation with your family. I had two kids. I have a 5-year-old and 3-year-old, and every chance I have to read a book is now completely gone. I miss the days of being able to sit on a beach or something and just read a book in quietness. And then I'm looking forward to 18-ish years when I can send them out of my house and I can start doing that again.
Yeah, my daughter is 18 years old, so I passed that moment long time ago, but I do remember those years.
Yeah. Well, Art, I appreciate you coming on today. We learned a lot about app development. We learned about the business of apps. App Promotion Summit is also coming up in 2 days in San Francisco, so make sure you check that out. Is there anything else that you would like to just share or talk about, Art, before we end today?
Yeah, just one quick thing. Remember, if you're in your 20s right now and you're beginning your own business, when you will be in your 40s, you will still have this feeling like your 20s inside of you, and this is great. But time is ticking. Try to be more mindful about your time. This balance between how much time you spend for work or for your family. Something's really hard to catch up later when you're 40 plus, trying to recall what would be great if I can go back in my 20s and do that thing instead of that thing. So be mindful of your time on what you're spending it.
Love it. Thank you for that, Art. And everyone, time is precious. It's the most valuable asset we have. So make sure you use it wisely. And we'll have all of Art as well as Business of Apps information on our Player Engage website. I really did appreciate you coming on today, Art. This is an insightful look at the kind of business of apps itself, and I appreciate it. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining today's episode. Join us next week when we meet with Tim Bennison from Hothead Games. We'll learn about code development as well as the pillars of building a new game. You can always find us at playerengage.com as well as on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So we hope to see you again soon, and thanks for joining us.